Hello and welcome back to the VolReport Show. I'm Ryan Sylvia, joined by Dale Dowden, and we're with VolReport.com on the Rivals Network. And Dale is our recruiting expert over at VolReport.com. He's been on the road, seeing a couple Tennessee targets, some Tennessee commits, and just getting the general rundown of what things are going on like on Rocky Top in terms of football recruiting. Dale, let's start with the news of the day. Five-star tackle Douglas Utu flips from Tennessee over to Oregon. Before we get into that, 5-star on rivals.com, different ratings elsewhere. Just want to kind of make things clear for everyone listening. We're with Rivals, so we're going to use Rivals rankings. That's going to be the case throughout all of our article. That's going to be the case throughout this entire podcast. If we say a ranking, that's what it is on rivals.com. If you've heard other rankings, other star rankings of other overall rankings, it's probably because they're with On3 or they're with 247 or they're with ESPN or whoever it is, and they're going to use their rankings. But for the purpose of our show, for the purpose of the content that we do, we will only be using Rivals rankings. So I wanted to get that clear out the jump. But 5-star on Rivals.com, one of the best players in the country. He's taking his talents over to Oregon. Dale, what are your thoughts on that? Is it time to hit the panic button, or is everything fine? It's just kind of how things go sometimes.
Yeah, and first off, with him, just to touch on what you said, I know some of the other sites have him as a 4-star. He didn't get a 5th star by flipping to Oregon. There's no anti-Tennessee narrative behind this. He actually, I had to look it up just to double confirm, but Friedman actually bumped him to a 5-star in June of 2023. So he was a 5-star well a year before he even committed to Tennessee, and is still a 5-star on the other side. To get back to your question, no, it's one you hate to see you lose at this point. Not anything to panic about. Is not any internal stuff that behind the scenes that Tennessee's falling apart. From some intel that I've gathered, I'm sure fans will have to say NIL this, whatever the cases are. One big deal for Utu is I'm pretty sure Tennessee was recruiting him on the interior line to bump in and play guard, even though he is recognized as an offensive tackle. I do think that's where his heart is wanting to play, and I think Oregon used that as their recruiting pitch. Come here. You'll be one of our elite tackles. You won't be, just another guy next to David Sanders Jr. That sort of thing. So I think that they probably touched on a few heartstrings of his. Pushed it. But with saying that, I don't see Tennessee laying down with this one. I think they battle with this one until signing day. So you could very well see, just like you saw with Faison Brandon, granted he wasn't, committed to Tennessee, he went to Oregon and came back.
Yeah.
You potentially could see another scenario of that.
It reminds me of maybe the Antonio Aguimaro situation where it's another guy listed as a tackle, but I think he more so projects to play on the interior when he gets to Knoxville, a guy that kind of reaffirmed his commitment today following the Douglas Utu news, though. He tweeted a picture of him, said something about like, I'm home with an orange emoji, something along those lines, kind of saying that he's in the camp. Douglas Utu on Rivals.com, the number 12 player in the country, the number 3 tackle in the country. Well, Tennessee's got the number 1 tackle in the country in that class, and David Sanders Jr., so that's got to take the sting out of it a little bit when you have the number 3 guy in the entire country committed. Talk about David Sanders, Dale. What do you like about him? And just how quick do you think he could maybe even play when he gets to Tennessee?
Honestly, if he's an early enrollee, I wouldn't be shocked them trying to have him ready when he gets here. Very tall guy, got a lean frame. I know a lot of people was kind of skeptic of the light weight for a long time. So, is he ever going to gain weight and truly look like that offensive tackle? The thing you have to keep in mind is would an elite offensive tackle for a high school may not be the same thing at the next level. And a lot of college coaches, they actually prefer that leaner body because they can look at the frame and see that, okay, he can, carry this weight. We like the lean frame. So when he gets to campus, really all they have to do is change his diet and up his intake to pack on the quality, muscle weight versus having a guy that's already at 330 come in, and it may not all be good weight. They want to shed some of it off and then rebuild, which takes some time to do all that, and it delays getting to the field. He gets to Tennessee as an early enrollee. Let's say in December. There's no telling what this kid looks like by the spring game next year, much less next fall.
Let's keep it with the 5 stars, but this time in the 2026 class, Faison Brandon, the biggest piece of that 26 class so far in Rivals.com, a 5-star, got bumped up to that 5th star in the updated 2026 rankings a month or two back. Number 6 player in the country, obviously the number 1 in the state of North Carolina out of Greensboro, and the number 1 pro-style quarterback in the class. Now, you've seen him in person, so you kind of know better than anyone else, but it's an easy comparison to me because they are 10 minutes away from the high schools they played at. But when I watch his film, man, I see some Hendon Hooker in him, and I know that's going to be kind of great news for Tennessee fans if he can capture a little bit of that Hendon Hooker magic. Do you see that at all? And just overall, what are your thoughts on Faison? I mean, like I said, you've seen him in person, so you should know.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see the athletic ability as far as, throwing on the run, the ability to stretch the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield. As a high school prospect. And again, he's a younger guy with a birthday that's, a little bit later in the year. So technically speaking, it's almost like he's playing up in a sense. And his ability to throw on the run and it be pinpoint accuracy is very impressive. I know I've talked about it before, but when I saw him at the Elite 11 back in April, the one thing that really stood out to me is he's coachable. You could tell there were a few drills that, he was unfamiliar with due to the style of offense he runs in high school, which is more of a spread of look. So going under center and doing the 3-step and the 5 steps and eluding pressure from left and right, you could tell some of that was a bit new to him. But to see him take the instructions and to repeat the rep and give the instructors exactly what they were asking for, it's a very good thing to see a young guy be able to absorb that and then just in a matter of moments put it back out the way that they want it to. So, this is a guy, which of the elite caliber, if he gets to campus, there's a few things, he might need to sharpen up on with Heupel and Halsley, and I'm sure they've already seen that, so when they give him his instruction, they have no doubt that he's going to make the adjustments and come back and give them exactly what he wants.
And he is young. I mean, you're talking about him at a camp before he even started his junior year of high school. So, he's got a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, just 15, I believe. I think is the big thing too. He's a junior in high school at 15 years old.
Yeah, so there's a lot of room to grow, but as with every person his age, there is. So, the fact that he's playing at this level this young, I think is pretty eye-opening. Swing it back to that 2025 class, though. 23 commits right now on Rivals.com. After the Douglas Utu flip, they dropped down to number 11 in the country. So knocking on the door of a top 10 class. Who's a guy in this class that is not getting talked about enough? Who's a guy that, maybe he is highly touted in the recruiting world, but still he's not getting the attention he deserves because of all the names that Tennessee stacked up in this class?
I almost have 2 of them. And when you look at the class and you see, they kind of went a little heavy with defensive backs in this class. 2 guys that, are playing for one of the best teams in the country. If you look at Max Preps at Milton High School, being Dylan Lewis and Tyler Redmond. Anytime you see these guys on film or in any type of big time game, they perform, they show up. I believe Rivals has both those guys at a 3-star at the moment. You could probably make an argument that both of them, deserve to, the 4-star rating. And even if they don't get it, you're definitely getting a couple of guys that they play a lot higher than what their ranking and, rating is at this point.
And the cool thing about those 2 guys, they've been committed forever.
Mm-hmm.
November 19th of 2023 for Tyler Redmond. And Dylan Lewis, October 12th of 2023. So if you look at the guys committed, it's those 2, and then Justin Baker, a guy that's obviously tied to them over in Georgia as well, who also committed over there in October. So it's guys that have been around forever. They've been committed forever, and obviously you love to see that if you're a school of recruiting guys that they pledge so early in the process, but then stick with it. A guy who's a 4-star, and he's honestly one of the higher rated players in the class, coming in at tied for the 2nd highest rated player for Tennessee right now. Dasan Brame, tight end out of Derby, Kansas. He's the 2nd tight end in the class. You just saw him on the road over to Oklahoma. Talk about that trip. Talk about what you saw from Dasan Brame and how good of a player is he going to be at Tennessee.
Well, first off, the trip out there was amazing. A lot of beautiful scenery. If you've never been out in the Kansas area, there's a lot of nice places out there. Seeing him in person, as far as pads, I got the opportunity to see him down in Jacksonville. And within 5 minutes of seeing him, I looked over at John Garcia and I told him, I was like, I've got to see this kid in pads. Like, I want to see him in a legit game, see, the physicality. And it didn't take long. I mean, even in the warm-ups, and you see a lot of that, guys making the one-handed catches, but it looked like he was just such at ease doing it. It was just like just second nature. Like some guys, you can tell they're about to try to make some spectacular catch. I had no idea he was fixing to do that till he just went up one-handed and plucks it. And I'm like, okay, worth noting. Then last week, a week prior to me having a chance to see him, something that caught my attention, you start seeing it surfacing around. Faison Brandon, 6'4", 6'5", 235-pound tight end, returns a punt 52 yards for a touchdown. And you're still scratching your head. You're like, when do we start doing this? I was very curious to kind of see if he would have that opportunity in that game. And sure enough, they kicked the second punt straight to him, and up the sideline, he comes. I don't think he ever really got inside the far hash. Just from that hash to the sideline, just comes up, makes a couple of cutbacks, runs through a tackler, and in the end zone he goes. And then a few plays later, comes across the middle on a dig route, catches the ball, turns upfield in the end zone again. Very big body, probably one of the better built tight end bodies I think I've seen in a while. Athletic, has nice speed. Just really everything you could really want in a tight end as far as the blocking, opening kickoff of the game. He comes up, gets locked in on a guy, kind of drifts him a little bit to the outside, to the sideline, and it clears a path. They return the opening kickoff for 6, coming right through the hole that he creates. So definitely another big physical guy that's going to, get in, down and dirty in the blocking, and is going to create a lot of mismatches with outside backers and safeties in the pass game.
Let's look at the 2026 class now. So the junior players for their high schools at the moment. Tennessee with 2 commits so far. We talked to Faison Brandon, the 5-star quarterback. They also bring in in-state tight end Carson Sneed, a continued success recruiting tight ends for Alec Ablin and company. He's a 4-star out of Nashville. So Tennessee's got 2 commits in the 2026 class, still really early, but they're all the way up to number 12 with just 2 commits, which I think speaks to the quality of the 2 guys they've landed so far. Who are some guys that Tennessee fans need to know right now in that 2026 class that maybe are trending Tennessee or that Tennessee's hard after and really wants to bring into Knoxville?
Well, in similar fashion, how you see this class, they pair up Faison Brandon with Jack Van Dorsey. They're going to make an attempt to do that in 26, it appears. I don't know if this next guy, if they miss on him, I don't know if they try to bring in 2. But with Sneed already being in the boat, I think that Keandre Harrison is another name to watch. Another elite tight end out of the North Carolina area, I think is the number 2 player in the state, right behind Faison Brandon. Was just recently on the same team with current 2025 5-star tackle David Sanders, and just recently transferred back to his old high school. But Keandre Harrison at tight end is a name that jumps out right away, along with another teammate of David Sanders in Leo Delaney, who I believe is going to be the number 1 interior line prospect for Tennessee.
Yeah, 2 guys or some guys to definitely keep their name on as Tennessee continues to at least try to recruit North Carolina really well. You saw them do that back in the day when they were really successful national championship caliber program. And as they kind of return to that level now as a top 5 team in the country, looks like they're returning to their roots over in the Tar Heel State. Let's take one step further now, 2027. So current sophomores in high school. And it's tough to kind of project some of these guys and really see where their interests are because they're so young. But there are names to watch in that 2027 class. Who are some that stand out to you?
One of the quarterbacks, I'm not going to say that right now they have him as a top priority, but he is a guy I know they've got in on early. They've had him up for a couple of visits, plans to be back at some point this fall, is Trent Seaborn, 27 quarterback out of Alabaster, Alabama. Interesting fact about this kid, I know everybody talks about, his freshman year, he led them to the playoffs of the state championship, won Gatorade Player of the Year. This kid is actually at a school that it seems like their high school and middle school is either combined or very close together. He actually ended up starting varsity as an 8th grader. and won a 7A state title in Alabama as an 8th grade quarterback playing varsity high school level. Was a bit undersized at that point. I think still, has some growing to do, but I think now he's finally up to like 6'1", probably about the 170-ish mark. Again, still a few years for him to grow. As far as I know Tennessee's been on the hot streak with quarterbacks, so that's definitely a name to know early on. I actually had to make a list on this one because there's quite a few guys, especially on the in-state, that Tennessee could keep an eye on. 2 guys from the in-state right off. Keyshawn Bowman, who's out at Brentwood with George McIntyre. We have him listed as an athlete. I think he more than likely probably ends up at receiver. And then another one is David Gabriel Georges, a running back here in the Chattanooga area at Baylor High School. I went to one of the Baylor's games earlier this year, and they have Shakai Mills-Knight, who is currently committed to Ole Miss. If these 2 guys are standing side by side facing away from you and you remove the number and the name, you wouldn't know which one is which. And that speaks heavily for Georges, as, Shakai Mills-Knight is a senior. Georges is just a sophomore and already has that 6', 6'1", 185, 190-pound body and moves very well. Definitely a running back as far as in-state for people to keep tabs on and stay up to date with.
Yeah, Trent Seaborn's a guy I know we've both talked to before, and I mean, you can tell he's a smart kid. You can tell that he has a great football mind too. The way that you ask him, like, hey, what do you like in Tennessee's offense, and the way he just kind of talks about the different ways Tennessee uses their quarterbacks and splits players around the field and things like that. You can tell that I mean, he's young, but he knows what he's talking about.
He definitely studies because everything is elaborated. It's not a very simple, one sentence or 2 sentences. Like he goes into great detail on what he likes about what they're doing, how that relates to what he does in high school, how that could develop and moving forward. It's very impressive, talking to him just from an intelligent standpoint. Like you say, he's a very intelligent kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's off to a great start this year as well. I mean, he threw 5 touchdown passes the other night for Thompson over in Alabama as he gets his season off to a nice start personally. And it's not like this is a guy that, I mean, Tennessee did identify early and offer early, don't get me wrong, but it's not like they're alone in that boat. He holds near 20 offers. He's just coming off visits to LSU, and he's going to be at Alabama this weekend for, of course, that ginormous Georgia-Alabama game. So he's highly touted, but Tennessee's in the boat early, and they've made an early impression with him. So yeah, that is one of the bigger names to watch as Tennessee tries to keep that momentum going in the quarterback side of things on the recruiting trail. Before we get you out of here, though, Dale, tell us about your upcoming recruiting trips. What are some guys you're looking to go see that have Tennessee offers, or maybe are Tennessee targets that you have on the docket?
Well, actually, this weekend with Tennessee being off, I was actually going to make the trip to North Carolina to see Faison, but then here comes, the hurricane storms, and they actually moved their game to today. Couldn't get off the day job in time, so I was like, okay, I have to rearrange that one. I'll probably try to slip up there probably during the bye week, the next bye week in October. As far as next weekend, Tennessee's back on the road heading to Arkansas. We'll more than likely stop by in Memphis and see Darius Jackson, who is a 2025 commit, just to get some content on him. After that, I really don't have a schedule really set right now, just because you have to play everything by ear with, the time frames of the Tennessee games, some of them not being set yet, some of them being released in the week leading up to. But y'all stay tuned to the message boards and keep up with us on Twitter. I'll be sure to let you guys know probably by a Monday or Tuesday what the plans are for that Friday, at least the general area, so y'all know who we may be out there seeing.
Yeah, absolutely, Dale. You're a road warrior. You're always out there getting coverage for us over
8 states in 3 days. 8 states in 3 days last week.
It's been fun to watch it and to read your coverage, though, as you're getting everything that we need over at VolReport.com on the recruiting side of things. And, it's a funny little period right now with Tennessee away from home and then this bye week. So it's been a while since Tennessee's had some recruits on campus. And then when you take into account that Chattanooga game, they didn't have anyone on campus. They've kind of been behind the 8 ball a little bit in terms of recruiting, but
almost scares you for the Florida week. That week is going to be jam-packed.
And we have a couple names. I mean, we've confirmed David Sanders, George McIntyre, Travis Smith Jr. Jakeem Dotson. Those are 4 2025 commits that are going to be there along with others. We have a list of guys that we can confirm, or at least intend, plans change, but have the intention of getting to that Florida game coming up in a couple weeks over on the Vol Report or the Rocky Top Forum on VolReport.com. So if you guys want to stay up to date, everything Tennessee recruiting, you got to be over there at VolReport.com. Grab yourself a subscription and kind of get to know the new faces that are coming to Rocky Top and will be the future stars in Knoxville. Dale, thank you so much for joining. We'll get you on again soon. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate it. Everyone, if you're driving in this nasty weather over here in kind of the southeast area, be safe. But links to everything you need is in the description. Thank you for watching.